Hello and welcome to lesson 86 of the Learning Guitar series. In this particular lesson, we're going to conclude our harmonic minor studies when it comes to the technical exercises, associated with the 5 shapes. So we're going to look at the remaining 2 shapes when it comes to intervallic studies, and then we're going to look at the group of 3 and group of 4, all 5 shapes. The important thing is that you understand that this lesson and the previous 2, so 84, 85, 86, they're not just preparing you for the harmonic minor scale as the first degree of the harmonic minor modes, but actually you're actually tackling all of the modes of harmonic minor at the same time. Of course, in the future lesson, we're going to delve into each individual mode and look, what's particular and interesting about them. Let's have a look at the PDF that comes with this lesson. And as you can see, we have basically harmonic minor part 3, and it consists of the shape of A, intervals, second, thirds, and you have all the intervals until the octave, and then last but not least, the shape of G minor, and again, all the relevant intervals. After that, you have group of 3, group of 4, and I'll show them to you on the guitar in a second. Here is the shape of E, and by group of 3, the R stands for reversed, as is this exercise, but backwards. And here you have group of 4, the shape of D minor, shape of C minor, shape of A minor, shape of G minor. And once you combine this PDF with the PDFs from lesson 85 and 84, basically you have the full-on picture when it comes to the harmonic minor 5 shapes on the guitar. Obviously, all the exercises are in G minor, as in the key of G minor, and you might want to transpose them in all other keys. At some point, we're going to have some recap exercises, the usual cycle of fourths like we did in the past when we did the major modes and melodic minor modes. At the same time, it would be interesting to look at some peculiar things which are, interesting about harmonic minor. Here I have an A minor, a harmonic minor scale. What's interesting about it is that if you think in terms of tension resolution, and we've done some of this when we've done the major modes, we know that in the major modes, the chord number 5 represents the tension, and chord number 1 is kind of the resolution. So if I think in terms of key of C, the strongest tension is coming from G7, because it's the chord number 5 of that mode. And in fact, if I play you G7, it wants to resolve into C major, or A minor if you think in terms of relative minor. When it comes to harmonic minor, obviously the harmonic minor itself, chord number 1, is minor. So let's do this in, say, A minor, A harmonic minor. And of course, if you want to spell the extended triad, it would be a minor major 7. What's interesting about it is that the fact that we're moving from Aeolian, but we adapted with a major 7 to it. So think of Aeolian like this, because that's how it's written. So this 6th degree of the major modes. The chord number 5, in this case, if I think from perspective of A minor, Aeolian, chord number 5 would be E minor, because if you think of this interval here, let's make this the root note for a second. You can see that there's a 1, flat 3, flat 7, and a 5. So literally there's an E minor. So in a way, for as long as you are within the major modes, so for example, if we have A minor, and we're thinking of it in terms of the Aeolian mode, so we have this chord and this scale. In that mode, the chord, the relative 5th to A minor will be, as we said, E minor. And in fact, it works. But you don't really establish this tension resolution kind of thing. And in fact, if you think of A minor as chord number 1, the tension will come not from E minor, but actually will come from E7, because E is the 5th of A, and the moment we make that dominant, it creates a tension that wants to resolve back to the one chord, in this case a minor type of one chord. So if I play E major, E7 before the A minor, you have a totally different effect. So from this, we're going to this. And if I put like, in this case I'm literally using E triad, if I add the flat 7, it's going to be even stronger, no? Now that we understood this concept, let's look again at the harmonic minor mode and the actual scale. So the harmonic theory is telling me, okay, in the harmonic minor modes, chord number 1 is minor, chord number 5 is dominant. And now let's look at it on the guitar. In fact, when we move from Aeolian to harmonic minor, what we're changing is this note, right? We have a major 7 instead of a flat 7. But let's see what happened now to our E. Now we have E7 contained in the actual scale. We didn't have this using A minor Aeolian within the major modes, but we have it once we move to harmonic minor. So harmonic minor is an interesting scale. The scale itself contains this, minor type of resolution, tension resolution kind of concept. So while in the major modes, chord number 5 obviously wants to go to the chord number 1, which is major, and feels natural that way. Or it wants to go to the relative minor, which will be A minor, but we're going there from G, which is not chord number 5, from an A minor perspective. So this can be a tension. And in those terms, we got to think as G7 as the tension for A minor. In this case, we're not doing this. What we're doing, we're thinking of A minor as the resolution, so as chord number 1, because the harmonic minor modes are giving me that from an harmonic theory point of view, and E7, which in fact is contained in the scale. Here they are. And in fact, as you can see, these two chords, so you can highlight them already with the arpeggio within the scale. Of course, from a modal perspective, once we start adopting the harmonic minor modes, we could look at the fifth degree every time. So in this case, every time I'm playing E7, am I still playing harmonic minor? Yes, I'm playing, the fifth mode of harmonic minor. And the fifth mode of harmonic minor is called Phrygian dominant. But as a matter of fact, what's happening here, I'm just staying in harmonic minor. I'm just very conscious and aware, as you should be too at this point, of the arpeggios within the scale. And dominant 7 arpeggio itself instead is something that we looked during the major modes. Now, for as long as we stick to the triads, so for example, A minor triad, going into chord number 5, in this case E7, but maybe just a triad, just E. And already there you can hear the two sounds. Now, what's different in this kind of dominant chord, so in this case E7, as opposed to when we looked at G7 resolving into C, is that G7 was a mixolydian, basically chord number 5 for the major modes. And if you look at the extension, so once you want to extend that chord, you have 9, 11, and 13. Which means I can build, G11 or G13 or G9 and then resolve into C major. There is no alterations there, just I'm creating some embellishments on the chord. So I could play G7 with a 13 going into C major or G11. Now let's look at the extensions instead that we have in this case for harmonic minor. If we look at the extensions of the chord number 5, of course the extended triad would be a flat 7, but now we have a flat 9 and we have a flat 13. And in this case, they are not going to be alterations. They're actually going to be embellishments. So E7 flat 9 is going to work. E11 is going to work, but still with a flat 9 in it. So or E7 add 11, or of course with the flat 13. In the flat 13, you can think of it as a sharp 5, for example. It's the same note. So in this case, these are not alterations. These are part of the chord. They're just the embellishment. So I could play E7 or E7 with a flat 9. Or, let's see, with a flat 9 and a sharp 5. And in fact, and you can see, because they all belong to the scale. So it's important that you understand that in this case, we're not altering the dominant 7 chord. We would be altering it if we were putting the 13 instead. Okay, this is not the dominant 7 chord that we're deriving from the major modes. That's the important part. We're deriving it from the minor harmonic modes. Another thing which is interesting also from an arpeggio perspective is that not only this is a dominant chord that is in there, all good. What's also in there is a diminished arpeggio, and we studied this in previous lessons. So if you look at this arpeggio, this is a diminished arpeggio. So what's interesting is that we also have this diminished arpeggio, which is contained in the scale. And as such, the moment we open the diminished door, and now we're opening also to the symmetries of diminished that we studied in the past, and we know it can move in tone and halves. So if I have, again, A minor, and then it's going to E7, I can also think of E7 as and of course it's moving in intervals of flat 3s. Does this apply also to the diminished scale? Not really. I mean, the moment we study a bit more some jazzy type of concept, yes, of course. But in that case, we will be altering the dominant chord. In this case, we're not trying to alter it. We're just using a language which is contained within the scale, and the diminished arpeggio is in there. And it's a diminished arpeggio starting a semitone above the actual dominant chord. So if you're thinking E7, like in this case, you're thinking of an F diminished arpeggio. So if this is E7, the arpeggio is here. Because the arpeggios basically has got 3 notes of the actual chord in common. We are still playing the 3, the 5, and the flat 7 for E, and we're adding the flat 9. So we're skipping the root note, and as intervals in the arpeggio, we're playing flat 9, 3, 5, and flat 7. And as we have seen from the harmonic theory, the dominant 7 flat 9 is a chord, we're not altering. Here is the flat 9. But that's opening the door to the diminished arpeggios and all the properties that come with it. Last but not least, as I said, there is a backing track that you can play with. So to recap, we're finishing the interval studies, and again, we're looking at this shape. So shape of A, and then we're looking at the shape of G minor. And of course, we're looking at, interval of seconds. Interval of thirds and so forth, same thing on the other shape. And again, these are technical exercises that give you dexterity over the scale. And of course, there is the groupings. So group of 3, for example. etc., 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 etc. I don't want to bore you with too much of this stuff now. You have the PDFs. And so keep studying those things and catch up with the material in 85 and 84, and then use the backing track. Just, the backing track is in G, so you don't have to transpose what you studied. The backing track is basically G minor and D7. So chord number 1 is G minor major 7, or this 7 if you prefer, and going into D7. And in this case, I gave the backing track a Latin feel. This is it for this particular lesson. I'm going to play like 20 seconds of the backing track so you get an idea of what's going on there. And it's been a pleasure as always. And until next lesson, goodbye.